Today, we are digging into a pretty fascinating one-week experiment that tackles a huge question. Can a developer actually build and ship a full-stack product using only AI without writing a single line of code by hand? We're going to look at the apps they built, the limitations they ran into, and what it all means for the future of software engineering.
So this is really the core question, isn't it? We're past the point of this being some theoretical debate. This experiment is about seeing if you could genuinely create a real, usable product just by having high-level conversations with an AI. Just describing what you want. So let's see what happened.
Okay, first things first, let's define what we're even talking about. Vibe coding. It's this idea that you can just explain the high-level vibe of the app you want to build, and the AI will handle all the technical stuff. You're basically the architect, not the one laying the bricks.
So here is our roadmap. We'll start with the experiment itself and the 3 apps that were built. Then we're going to dive deep into the big takeaways, from where this stuff actually works best to a pretty serious warning for senior engineers. And finally, a simple guide on when you should and shouldn't use these AI tools. So the stage was set for a one-week coding sprint with one really radical rule: absolutely no manual coding. The whole point was to push these AI tools to their absolute limit by trying to build 3 totally different apps, each one a little more complex than the last. 3 apps, 1 week, 0 manual code. That was the challenge. The big question is, could the AI actually pull it off? Let's get into the results.
And what do you know? In just 1 week, 3 fully-fledged applications were generated. So let's break them down one by one and really see where vibe coding shines and where it, well, doesn't.
All right, first up was a contest platform. Think a simple app for making and taking quizzes. To make it interesting, the AI was also asked to build a real-time leaderboard. The result? Honestly, it was incredibly impressive. Something that would normally take a human engineer a full day of work was spit out after just 2 or 3 prompts. For these kinds of straightforward apps, the speed is just undeniable. Next, they upped the ante with an online poker game. And the AI actually handled these super complex rules of poker right out of the box. And it produced a pretty decent UI. A huge productivity boost. But, and this is a big but, the game was buggy. And trying to debug the AI's code was apparently infuriating. And this quote just captures that frustration perfectly. See, when AI code works, it feels like actual magic. But the second it breaks, you're left trying to debug a total black box. This difficulty, this nightmare of troubleshooting AI code, is probably one of the biggest hurdles for vibe coding right now. And finally, the ultimate test, a clone of Riverside, a really complex video recording tool. And this is where the limits became crystal clear. I mean, on one hand, the AI did an amazing job generating a clean, professional-looking UI. But the core logic? It was buggy. You had persistent issues, like the camera just refusing to start. It actually took a human stepping in to get it this far, which shows that for these really complex systems, we are not there yet. So what did we learn from building these 3 apps? Well, the first major takeaway is all about finding that sweet spot, the place where vibe coding is the most powerful. And this really shows the great divide. For building minimum viable products, MVPs, to just quickly test out an idea, vibe coding is an absolute game changer. But for a mature, complex product like, say, Amazon, with years of code and real money on the line, it is way too risky. The AI just doesn't have the deep historical context that human engineers do. And this number signals a huge shift in the startup world. I mean, why hire a super expensive engineer for a prototype that, let's be honest, has a high chance of failing anyway? For about $200 a month, a founder can now build that initial product all by themselves. That completely changes the math for early-stage companies. Okay, let's move on to our next takeaway. And this one's a little challenging. The rise of AI is putting a certain kind of experienced developer directly on notice. The author of this experiment actually coined a term for it: senior engineer copium. It's this kind of denial that can set in when you've spent your whole career getting really good at one specific, repeatable skill, only to watch an AI learn how to do it in an afternoon. It's a defense mechanism, really, against a world that's changing incredibly fast. The advice that comes out of this is blunt, but it's probably necessary. Stop hiding behind a niche skill that a machine can do now. It's time for some honest self-reflection to figure out where your true, non-automatable value really is. You see, complacency is the real enemy here.
All the mundane, low-impact work that's padded out careers in big tech for years, it's becoming harder and harder to justify paying someone to do that. The new currency isn't knowing a specific framework. It's being able to solve high-impact, complex problems that AI just can't touch. And that leads us right into our third big takeaway. AI isn't just changing how we do tasks, it is fundamentally rewriting the rules of what we consider valuable in the first place. Take a look at this. Just a year ago, a human might do 95% of the work. Now, AI can handle 99% of it. The grunt work, the boilerplate code, even a lot of the UI design. The human's job is shrinking down to that final, critical 1%. And the consequence of this is huge. When the machine does 99% of the job, perfection becomes the new baseline. Little errors that might have been ignored before are now totally unacceptable. A developer's entire value is now concentrated in that final 1% of polish and perfection. And you can see this shift creating clear winners and losers in the market. Business models built on simple question and answer sites like Stack Overflow are dying. The value is all moving to new AI-native companies. Just look at Y Combinator. Almost every company in their latest batch is built around AI. The real opportunity is in using AI to unlock totally new industries, kind of like how Stripe did for fintech. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most actionable takeaway. There is a huge difference between using AI for learning and using it for production. So here's the framework. For production work, if you're a professional, you're on a deadline, by all means use these tools. Vibe code your heart out to be as productive as possible. But, and this is a really big but, if you are learning a new skill, stay away from them. The struggle of learning something new is what builds the deep mental models you need. Using AI as a crutch will seriously stunt your career growth in the long run. You've got to earn your craft. So we'll end on this thought. The old saying is true. AI isn't going to replace you, but a developer who knows how to use AI absolutely will. They can produce 10 times more work and focus all their energy on that critical final 1%. So the question isn't if you should adapt anymore,